My name's ScottDixon. I'm a final year student here at Bath University, first team captain of football, and I'm running for the position of sports officer.
Brilliant. So the first question is, what would you like to be your biggest achievement as VP Sport if you were elected next year?
My biggest achievement would be to bridge the gap between the bigger sports and the smaller sports. So obviously you've got rugby, football, netball, hockey. They're all four major sports this university relies on. They look after themselves, within, content. I want to bridge the gap between those sports and the smaller sports. Badminton, they win us valuable bucks points. I went and watched them yesterday and they didn't even have kit to wear. They were just all wearing their own kit. We've got to be proud of who we are, represent Team Bath, all look the part, be the part, and if I can achieve anything just to narrow that gap, so there's fairness and equality throughout the whole of sport, that would be a great achievement from the year.
Brilliant. So what ways would you like to improve the sporting experience for the general student body?
Another big point of my manifesto is I want inclusion of everyone at university to be involved in sport in some way, shape or form, whether that's recreationally or intramural sport, or at the higher end of the spectrum. The 330 club, to be fair, I knew about it, but until I did my research on it, I didn't really know what it was, what it offered. All freshers that come in, they need to be inundated with exactly what that is. So I know there's quite a few people, from the feedback I've got, there's a lot of people out there that know it exists, but they don't know what it is, etc. So we really need to, make that mainstream and get everyone involved, everyone active, and just enjoying the great facilities that we've got here on offer.
Yeah, sure. So you kind of touched on it, but how do you feel about the current balance between recreational and performance sport, and what would you kind of do to try and cross that boundary?
Obviously there's always going to be a divide, sort of the recreational intramural, it's more sort of fun, banter, that sort of, that end of the spectrum, whereas, the actual Team Bath sports, it's a lot more competitive, there's a lot more at stake. There's always going to be that gap, but what I'd like to do is things like varsity. Obviously it's a massive thing for, for the sports teams at the university. I'd like to make varsity bigger. Obviously I've done a similar role in America for 2 years as a sport officer. I know how big varsity is over there, it's huge. And there's no reason why we can't sort of try and incorporate that into Bath University. There's enough students here, so I'd like to make varsity a lot bigger for several sports. It came up in the debate this morning that apparently Exeter had pulled out a couple of teams, so it made it a bit hard. But there's ways around it. Hockey, rugby, netball, football, obviously they're the four main sports. Maybe get one or two more in there. And then at the same time, at the other end of the spectrum with the intramural and recreational sports, they need to feel wanted at Bath University as well in the sports department. So there's no reason why throughout the year they can't have sports weekends which give out the same varsity vibe and get all the freshers on board, get down and support your friends, have a laugh, have a couple of beers, have a social time, and just get everyone under the same umbrella.
Yeah, sounds good. Okay, so a couple of hockey issues that we face. We've always had very limited pitch time. Obviously there's a lot of strain in the Astros. How could you see you might be able to tackle this problem to improve the chances for people playing hockey?
Okay, obviously it's been drawn to my attention that booking of facilities is a long way off really with regards to are we getting 100% out of all the facilities that we've got. In my opinion, no. You walk through the STV, there's empty halls where they've been booked and no one's turned up. In America I brought in a system like a deposit system. Basically, let's just say £10. You phone up, book a facility, pay £10. If you turn up, you get that gets given back to you. If you don't turn up and you don't tell anyone about it, you don't get the money. That goes into into the university, into the sports. And maybe get a little pot going. Whatever's left at the end. Maybe share it out equally amongst all the sports, like recreational and the mainstream sports. And then if you do phone up and cancel in advance, you get £5 back. So there's sort of hidden agenda. So hopefully in that respect, to be fair, in America it did work to some extent, and it did stop a lot of cancellations. So hopefully, in that regard, with regards to hockey and the pitches, if someone's booked it for 5-a-side or whatever, and they don't turn up, hopefully that will try and accommodate, giving you guys extra time on the pitches, for training and all sorts.
Okay, yeah. Something else we've been doing over the last 2 years is drastically increasing our recreational programme to the point where we now have a men's sixth and a ladies sixth team.
Okay.
How do you see your role as VP Sport helping those teams to progress, and kind of what support do you think you could give them which this year's candidate haven't given them?
Okay. Well, obviously that's looking, something, at the bottom end of the spectrum again. However, like, I don't want to be, I don't want to be tunnel vision. I want to be, like that. Every sport, every team, I want to make myself known to them, support them in any way they can, any way I can. If teams need things, they need to know that I'm approachable, I'm a friendly guy. If they come and voice their concerns, opinions to me, I'll bend over backwards for any team, any individual, to make sure they're getting the best out of sport at Bath Uni. With regards to hockey 16 sevens, obviously ideally within the first month of if I do get the position. In the first month, I wanted to have met every chairman of every sport, every captain, every team, and just done do a little introduction. They get to know me, get a feel for me. I know who everyone is, and then hopefully we have a good relationship throughout the year. And like I said, my door will always be open, and I'll bend over backwards to try and help and accommodate anyone.
Okay, yeah, sounds good. So on the other end of the spectrum, the hockey clubs put a lot of our own budget into coaching for our second teams this year.
Okay.
How other ways do you think you could help the development of performance teams so that we can compete with the likes of Exeter and Durham and unis like that?
Okay, again, I was looking at developing and increasing like a reward system. So I know obviously the hockey first team won their league this year. They went out in the quarters, I believe. They've won the league. So next year, for winning the league, they should get some sort of recognition for that, which would go into the whole of the hockey, not just the first team, the whole of the hockey squad. So I don't know what the budget is, I don't know what it's going to be, but if I was to get in that position, I'd be looking for some sort of reward system. So the smaller teams, like it comes to my attention, the snooker team this year came second in their league, first time they've ever done it. Great achievement, earned valuable bucks points for the uni. Are they going to get the recognition or rewards for doing that for next year? Answer right now, probably not. They'll just go again next year like this year. There needs to be something to work towards. So the bigger teams, well, all teams, if you're not achieving your goals, if you're not doing well, and then there's going to be, it's going to be, a different sort of, what can I sort of say? There's going to be, I'm stuck here, what am I trying to say? Basically, the teams that are overperforming, overachieving, they need to be recognised and rewarded, whether that is third or fourth teams, first teams, whatever. They need to be rewarded, and the other teams that aren't hitting their targets, there needs to be consequences there.
Yeah. Okay.
Sure.
So something else that we're quite good at doing in a club is supporting our own teams on Wednesday afternoon and trying to build a supporting atmosphere.
Okay.
How do you think you as a VP Sport can improve that for the whole campus and kind of promote sport on the Wednesday afternoon?
So that's a great question. Again, like looking into my manifesto, promotion and advertising of all sports is something I feel. Again, looking back to my time in America, every Wednesday or every game day, whatever day it was, the whole of the university knew there was a game being played. Flyers, posters. Again, I don't know what the budget is, but it costs 4p to print out a black and white poster. We're not asking for the world, and sometimes I might even go into my own pocket just to make sure that people know it's happening. But I don't feel that for how big this university is, there's not enough promotion and campaigning going on. So I want like every, especially with the sports that are being played on campus, there's no reason why freshers can't go over there with a couple of tillies, cheer on the hockey, the netball girls, rugby, go over there, have a social time, support, Team Bath or whoever's playing, and just really, support's great. And I don't feel that this uni right now has enough of it, but that is mainly through promotion. And if I was to get a position, that is one of my big targets. I want all of uni to know what's going on when, hopefully rally some people together and generate support. Everyone loves support, so hopefully that can really take off next year.
Okay, great. So looking at your time spent at Bath, what do you think the current areas of weakness are in the SA?
Again, I'd say like the bigger teams are all well accommodated for, looked at like within the budgets and that, whereas the smaller teams, they just seem to keep drifting away. Like I know the diving squads, they're struggling to stay alive for next year. It'd be great to keep them up and running, but at the same time, they need exposure. They need people to join the team, and it all runs at a cost. You know, we already offer 48 fantastic sports, and that's, you know, arguably more than any other university in the country. But we've got to make sure that those sports are being, you know, fully, you know, it's happening. Like, everyone is on the ball, enjoying the sport, and there's, you know, everyone's having a good time. With regards to sort of weaknesses, just trying to think back over my 3 years here, really. Like, again, I'd say, like, you know, again, through promotion, like, it just takes a couple of flyers, posters around uni, and you'll get people come and watch. And that really doesn't take long at all to put them up. You know, I'd go around and do it myself just to generate support. I really think that, you know, I feel strongly about that. And, you know, freshers are probably just chilling in their rooms when they could be out in the sun having a beer watching the hockey.
Yeah, sure.
So.
Sounds good. So looking at the current VP Sport, where do you think he's kind of succeeded and failed this year?
Obviously, he cut the budget. Like, whether he had to or not, I'm not too sure. I've not really delved into that too much. I feel the sport again has been a fairly successful year for all sports, all recreational sports. I just don't feel that as the university we're getting enough out of all of our sports. There's more to give, and hopefully, if I get the position, I'll be really reiterating that to every sport. You know, you're out here representing Bath Uni. Let's give it our best, and at the same time, let's have fun. Everyone with a smile on their face and just enjoying what they're doing. To be fair to John, I don't think he's done too bad this year. But like I said, there's always room for improvement. There's areas to develop, and hopefully, in my manifesto, I'm looking to try and achieve, which I feel are achievable goals within a year, or steady steps, strides to achieving that.
Yeah, great. So, what would you say are your weaknesses as an individual that you'd have to overcome if you were to step into the shoes of VP Sport?
I do like to, take things on my own. Whereas, I work great as a team. I work good as an individual. Like, in my opinion, obviously, I could differ from someone else. Blowing my own trumpet here. But if there's problems, I've got to remember I've got a team. So I'd have like football chairman, hockey chairman. I'd need to make sure that I'm always in correspondence with all the different sports representatives of each sport. I need to know exactly what's going on when, what teams, if they're struggling, do they need my help, support. I feel I'm a great, listener, a really friendly guy, very approachable, and I feel that will, bode well for next year with regards to, always being approachable, door always being open, and, anyone can come and, have a word with me. And like I said, I'll bend over backwards and try my utmost, and if it's possible, I'll attempt to do it. If not, we'll try and work around it.
Okay, yeah, sure. So just looking at some points in your manifesto now, you've said you'd like to attract the best high-performance athletes to our university. What ways or measures do you think you'll bring in to do that?
Okay, so I'm looking more at recruitment. Obviously, we've got a website, we've got other sources of advertising that we need to really reinforce and expose, so we can get the best hockey lads coming through college, to play in the first team, to represent Bath Uni. We don't want to lose all the great talent to Loughborough, to Northumbria. We want them to come to Bath, and I feel like we really need to rally a campaign together and make sure that they know what sports are on offer here, what facilities we've got, and there's a place for outstanding students at the same time, if they've got the grades, obviously. But we need to make sure that we keep hold of them and bring them up through, as opposed to losing them to other big competitor universities.
Yeah, sure. So you've talked a little bit about publicising kind of achievements and results. What's your opinion of what happens already, and where do you think it can be improved?
Well, yeah, I mean, even down to the recreational level, there's no reason why. I know it might be a little bit time consuming, but it still just looks the part. Putting scores, putting league tables up on the website, it won't take long, and it just looks a lot more professional. And obviously at the top end, the results go in the impact paper every week, but do enough people read that? I don't think so. Why can't we get shout outs on URB radio, the hockey team have the thirds have just won. At Score, there's no reason why people can't get on the mic throughout the night and just say give out appreciation, well done to Hockey First winning the league this year. We just need that togetherness to come back into Bath Uni and Bath Sport, I feel.
Yeah, sure. You've also mentioned a bit later on about how you'd like to implement new high-profile tournaments in various sports. With the current strain on facilities as it is, when would you see these kind of things being run, and kind of which sports would you like to run them for?
Yeah, obviously, like you said, there is constraints and stipulants regarding the use of facilities. That is something that I'd love to do, and it's something I would really have to sit down and really consider if it is viable. Obviously, like you said, the facilities are always being used here, but I just feel like, again, going back to my America days, throughout the year, it wasn't just varsity at the end of the year everyone was looking forward to. Every couple of weeks, a month, there was a big tournament going on where, again, it was promoted well, conducted really well, like loads of students come along and supported, and it was just a great weekend. And I feel, from the top end sports all the way down to intramural recreational, there's no reason why, if the facilities are available, we can't, stipulate those ideas, and have every couple of weeks or a month, like these sports tournaments that just generate interest, and hopefully one of the main aims would be to get more people involved. They'll come along, watch a game, and I might fancy that, and obviously then get them to the 3:30 club, have a go, and if they enjoy it, why not join up a team, recreational, if you've got it in your locker, a little bit higher. So that's sort of where I'm trying to look with regards to that.
Yeah, it certainly sounds good. So then, just to finish off, is there anything else, kind of a short message you'd like to pass on to the hockey club?
Well, obviously I went there last night for the social, turned up, couldn't believe how well you guys have ran it there, it blows out the football social. I really enjoyed, the boys and the girls being there, and I'd love to bring that into every club, so it's, there is that togetherness. So I could see, as soon as I walked in, hockey was hockey. There weren't, 2s and 3s sitting over there, or 4s and 5s, it was all together, really well ran. So hopefully if I could incorporate that into other clubs next year, that would be huge. So I really enjoyed my time with the hockey guys last night. I hope you all enjoyed my rap. There's plenty more where that come from if I get into power, but I had a good time, and hopefully I can rally up a bit of support from the hockey guys.